math questions in this test are designed in such a way that you can solve them individual step by individual step. Even if you have no clear idea how you're going to get to the final answer from there, if there's one step at a time that you can solve, kind of like a geometry problem, do that. And then, first of all, that gets rid of one part of the unknown that you can kind of cross out. And then it gives you one more piece of known information to help you get to the from one step to the next. So no one's ever necessarily going to tell you that, but I am. That if something looks just insurmountable, start nibbling it off piece by piece, because that is always going to be a viable approach. Started on this, look at the answer choices, see what they tell you. Okay, they're centered around 1, 2 or below, 2 or above. Maybe that'll help you. 2 of them go to 1 decimal place, 2 of them go to 2 decimal places. Okay, that could help you. Notice also that they're symmetrical. This is 0.2 above and below. This is 0.25 above and below. Or no, sorry. Yeah, 0.25 below and 0.25 above. Then take another look at the question and see if that's given you any new clues as to how you're going to proceed. I mean, if you've taken the right approach, okay, a lot of those earlier questions in inequalities in particular, and especially those that involve inequalities in an inequalities question, those are the ones that you're usually able to tackle very quickly. And that means, and yet still very accurately, and that means that you can answer those quickly, and you can save up that time from the average allotted amount of time. And if need be, you can spend 2.5 or even 3 minutes on a question like this without worrying about it, because you saved up that time earlier. So as long as you're following a plan and you're aware of how you're spending your time, you shouldn't ever have to be worried about running out of time or about having to rush. Just no good thing is going to come out of rushing through this test. Yes, going through it like clockwork, kind of methodically, moving right along, yes, that's an approach that you want to take. But rushing, absolutely not. This is another one that comes down to what I call a threshold question. It may seem like mud until you first ask yourself this question, get your brain wrapped around the concept that's at the core of this. Okay, he purchased 80 pencils and sold them at a loss equal to the selling price of 20 pencils. Okay, I've gone through this enough times that I can see this, finally. We're not talking about similar quantities. We're not talking apples to apples, okay? We're talking about purchase price of 20 pencils and selling price of 20 pencils. So we can't compare those two to each other directly. In fact, there's only one word out of that first sentence that we can really make use of as we go into the second step of this problem. What's that one word that really tells us something meaningful from the first line? Right. Right. We're not yet sure exactly what the connection is, what the formula we could draw in, but we do know that he lost money, no matter what it is. And so that may not seem like a lot to go on, but that's at the very heart of this question. No, no, no. By no means does that mean equal. Okay, if it said equal in business terms, well, see, on these tests, depending on how sneaky they want to be, they may say something, or they may simply be silent on it. and then you can't assume that it's a loss or a gain. But if they were equal, you could say he broke even, or they might just say nothing and then later on say, once he's done, he has the same amount of money as he started with. But if he sells them at a loss, that's absolutely unequivocal. That means that he lost money. So, how are you going to rectify that situation? You got two ways, okay? You have to lower your purchase price or raise your... So we know that he lost money. Now let's shift gears to a second. So in your notes, all you might write down is that, lost money. I mean, no one's going to read your notes, so you don't have to put them down in any kind of formal arithmetic notation, just whatever's going to make sense to you. Now on to the second half. And this is one where you can write this down on the fly as you're reading. I don't want you to take the time or to give them a chance to confuse you a second time through. Cost times 80 pencils means equal sign. Okay, I can cross all that out. How many times? Okay, times, going back to silly, grade school language, possibly means the multiple of. So x times multiplied by, different ways you can say it, different ways you could write it. How many times the selling price of 80 pencils? Okay, and what I've done there then is I've translated these words and numbers into variables and values that then I can work with. And if you want to, you can simplify. You can see they just added in extra wordiness here just to hope to throw a few people off the scent, off the trail. Times 80p appears in both sides of the equation. And so you have his cost is what multiple of his selling price? Well, and here's the threshold question. Oh, okay, bummer. If he lost money, is his purchase price for those pencils that he sold, is that going to be greater than, equal to, or less than 1 times what he sold them for? Okay, let's look at it again now. Let's combine the two halves of the sentence together. He lost money. Now, is the price he paid for them going to be less than, equal to, or more than the cost that he sold them for? Right. No. Let's think about this. If I buy something and I lose money on it, how do I do that? I pay more for it than I charge for selling it. Can everybody get that? Okay, I hope I didn't misspeak earlier. Therefore, his cost is higher than his selling price. Did I misspeak earlier? I apologize if I did. Cost is how many times selling price. Cost has to be greater than 1 times the selling price, because 1 times the selling price would be equal to 100% of the selling price. Since cost is greater, it can't be 1, because that would be breaking even. If his cost were equal to his selling price, then he would neither make a profit nor a loss. He would break even, and therefore it'd be 1. If he made money, then his cost would be less than his selling price. But that's not the case. And so we rule out A and B as well at the same time. So now it's either got to be D or E. And if we're confident in this process, then we know it must be one of these 2 answers. We don't have to be certain which one it is. If we're sure that it's not one of them, then we pick the other one, and we're perfectly confident that that's it. Now is where we can actually apply a couple of these numbers. Selling price of 20 pencils over selling price of 80 pencils. Simplify. He paid 100% plus the amount that he overpaid, the amount that caused him to lose money. So 2/8 simplifies to what fraction? And convert that to a decimal. Yep. He overpaid by 25%, or he undercharged by 25% when he sold the pencils. But the threshold question here was right in forming this equation. Cost was how many times the selling price. It might have been more obvious, if drier sounding or less natural sounding, to say the cost was what multiple of the selling price. But that would have made it kind of more obvious. In order for you to lose money, your cost has to be higher than your selling price, or your selling price has to be lower than your purchase price. Once you've made up that decision, then you crossed off 3 answer choices. And then if you wanted to, alternatively, you could plug in one of the 2 numbers into the equation, D or E. And if it worked, then great. You'd have your answer. Pick that and move on. If it didn't work, you would just as certainly know that it was the other answer. Pick it and then move on. So it's at the hard level, but do you all see how it comes down really to a basic question of getting your brain wrapped around this part of it?